A muffled scream echoed in the great throne hall, followed by the sound of gold clashing against marble. Ivan, the most famous chef in the empire, was being dragged across the floor by the burly palace guards, screaming as he resisted. "It's poison. I swear to you, something is stealing the taste." But no one listened to him. On his cold throne sat Tsar Nikolai, his face a mask of ice with no emotions. He looked at the exquisite dish before him, then at the collapsing chef, and said in a calm but more lethal voice than the edge of a sword, "Another failure. Take him to the Tower of Despair." The Tower of Despair was the prison where every chef who failed to restore the Tsar's sense of taste was thrown, and no one had ever come out of it. So, what is the mysterious secret that turned the most delicious dishes into ash in the Tsar's mouth? And will anyone be able to solve the mystery of the stolen flavor before the Tower of Despair swallows all the chefs in the world? Stay with us to discover the shocking truth. In the depths of the bustling palace kitchens worked a poor young man named Yuri, who was not a cook but just a young assistant whose job was to peel vegetables and wash dishes. But Yuri had a unique and dangerous talent. He was born with a strange ability to taste emotions in food. He knew if the baker was angry from the bitter taste of the bread, or if the pastry chef was in love from the sweetness of the pies. And Yuri was tasting something frightening in every dish served to the Tsar. Beneath the most expensive saffron and the rarest spices, there was one hidden flavor that always repeated: the taste of ash and despair, as if something was sucking the soul out of the food before it reached the Tsar's mouth. The only suspect in Yuri's mind was the head chef Victor, a man with thick eyebrows and a forced smile that did not reach his cold eyes. He was the only one who did not participate in the competition and supervised every dish that left the kitchen. One night, Yuri pretended to be asleep in a corner of the kitchen, and after everyone had left, he saw Victor sneaking into the secret spice pantry. Yuri followed him silently and saw him open a small iron box, from which he took out a small spoonful of a pale gray powder and sprinkled a nearly invisible amount over the royal dish. Yuri realized he had seen the poison with his own eyes, but he knew that if he confronted Victor, no one would believe him, and he had to find the proof and the antidote himself. Yuri snuck into the old palace library, and after a long night of research, he found what he was looking for: a picture of a gray powder under the name Dust of Apathy. It was a rare poison that did not kill the body, but killed the senses, stealing flavors and emotions and leaving behind a cold void. And worse, the book said that its only antidote was the sunflower, a rare flower that only grows on the peaks of the frozen Echo Mountains and is guarded by ice beasts. Yuri had only one choice. He left the palace secretly before dawn and set off on a deadly journey towards the distant mountains. The Echo Mountains were a harsh and unforgiving place, where icy winds blew fiercely and the snow was deep enough to swallow him. As he was climbing a narrow pass, 3 huge creatures of frozen snow appeared, the guardians of the mountain with eyes of black coal. They surrounded him, preparing to crush him. In a moment of despair, Yuri remembered he had carried a small bag of warm gingerbread. Quickly, he opened the bag, and a strong, fragrant smell emanated from it. The snowmen stopped, sniffing the air in confusion, a scent their noses were not used to. Their heads began to spin, they staggered, and then fell onto the snow, unconscious. Yuri continued his ascent, but he had barely reached the summit when he found himself before the Lady of the Mountains, sitting on a throne of ice. She looked at him with eyes as cold as winter, and he fell unconscious. He opened his eyes to find himself lying before her, and she said in a voice like the roar of the wind, "No one crosses my land without permission. To pass, you must answer my riddle. A thing that flies without wings, walks without legs, and cries without eyes. What is it?" Yuri thought for a long time, then raised his head and said with confidence, "It is the cloud." A semblance of a smile appeared on the icy queen's face, and she gestured for him to pass. Finally, he reached a strange forest where the trees were made of pure crystal. As he walked cautiously, the trees shook and began to drop fruits resembling crystal grapes. But as soon as the fruits touched the ground, small mouths filled with sharp teeth and red eyes opened on them. The predatory fruits began to chase him. Yuri ran with all his might, and in a moment of despair, remembered his grandmother's words, "In times of trouble, hold on to my necklace." He took out an old silver necklace and raised it above his head, gathering the faint sun rays into a concentrated beam of light. The beam struck the crystal fruits, shattering them into thousands of pieces, and the rest fled in terror. Yuri reached the summit and found the sunflower, a single golden flower pulsating with a warm light that melted the snow around it. He picked it carefully and returned to the palace with utmost speed. He snuck into the kitchen in the middle of the night and made only one thing: salt. He ground the sunflower and mixed it with the finest salt, creating a few grains of radiant golden salt. The next day, as Victor was presenting his lavish dish to the Tsar, Yuri stepped forward bravely and said, "Your Majesty, Sheik Victor's dish is missing only one thing: a little salt." Victor laughed mockingly, but the Tsar, who had nothing left to lose, gestured for Yuri to come forward. Yuri took out a single golden grain of salt and sprinkled it over the Tsar's dish. The Tsar took a bite, and in that moment, a volcano of flavors erupted in his mouth. He didn't just taste the food. He tasted the rays of the sun, the cold of the snow, and the courage of a young man who risked his life for him. For the first time in years, he felt life. The Tsar opened his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks, and looked at Yuri with deep gratitude. Then he looked at Victor, wisdom having returned to his eyes, and said in a thunderous voice, "I was blind, but now I see, and I taste the flavor of betrayal in every bite you have served me." He ordered the arrest of Victor and had him thrown into the Tower of Despair. As for Yuri, the Tsar kept his promise, made him the head chef, and bestowed upon him riches he had never dreamed of. And here we reach the core of the tale and its wisdom. True cooking, like all great art, is not made with luxurious ingredients, but with love, courage, and a deep understanding of the heart of the one you are feeding. For the simplest of flavors that carry sincere feelings are more powerful than any poison that kills the soul. What is the flavor or scent that brings back your strongest memories? Share your stories with us in the comments. We would like to thank you, our dear followers, for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe to discover a new depth in our upcoming tales.